All right, well let's start with this. Tell me what you do and how long you've been studying body language specifically in cases like this.
Sure. My name is Susan Constantine. I'm the president of the Human Behavior Lab here in Orlando, Florida. I've been in the behavioral analysis business since 2004, and I am also a trial consultant. So I assist attorneys in how to deselect jurors, how to profile jurors. I'm often used on a regular basis, covering videos just like this on an ongoing basis. In fact, in the last 2 days, I've had three, including the presidential um, Oval Office with Zelensky and Putin. So this is what I've done for over 20 years. I have a master's degree in leadership coaching psychology and a master's degree in credibility and also communication and behavior. So I have a dual master's. And so what I do is exactly this, is to analyze behavior. And I also use what we call a non-subjective, but an objective science-based analysis of behavior. So it's not my reading a cue and assigning a meaning, but there are specific cues that I'm tying together and clustering them together based on research science. So everything I do is science-based.
When you initially saw this video for the first time, what was just kind of your initial reaction or just even looking at their demeanor?
Yeah, so my overall reaction, he reminded me of Chris Watts. Chris Watts did the very same thing, having his hand over his head, cupping it. What was interesting about it is it remained there. So oftentimes when people are distressed, you'll see them move from in and out of distress. So he keeps his hands on his head the entire time, for the most part. So that
They
is.
found her in the wash month because go ahead.
Yeah, that he is showing concern. This is concern, and I'm going to tie it all together with you. We've got girlfriend who is the closest to the daughter. She's the one knelt down. He's at a distance. And I'm going to tell you the significance of this because there is a point within this video of this videos that you show me when they've asked, whose child is it? And he says, it's mine. Now, why is that significant? Because when you use the word it's versus she's my daughter, it shows a conflicted relationship. So it's is removing is distance away from the actual person. Now, do I think that throughout these videos, he's showing concern? The answer is yes. So why is he concerned? Because he knows what happened prior to that is what actually created the problem she's having. And he gives it away all throughout. And also she does too. So we can talk about that. When I'm looking at a particular clue, what you're looking at here, she's touching the body, right? Closest person to her, he's overseeing. It should have been flipped. That's dad, that's girlfriend. So where is he in conjunction to the daughter? There's no discussion with him to the daughter. He doesn't ask if she's going to be okay. There's no real concern about questions asking what he can he do. Rather, we're hearing him talk about him being miles and miles away from the location where she needs to be brought to. And when she was delivered, she was brought to him that way. Here's where it gets interesting. She admits that they had her outside standing in the under the shade. Why is that important? Because there's probably times where he has them out of the shade. No, the fact that they actually injected that was purposeful because what they're doing is they're setting up that child's issue was dehydrated, was left out in the sun and was dehydrated, not given her meds. And that is why this occurred. So why are they worried? They know what they did. They left her outside. They had left her outside in the sun. They may have, they're using they put her in the shade as an excuse, but they in essence were the ones that created and perpetuated the problem of why this child is slightly unconscious.
Okay, I want to play some of these clips and we'll kind of then break down their reaction. And also to note, when Rebekah was taken to the hospital, I mean, her body is covered in bruises from head to toe. I mean, even doctors described what she had been through as torture.
Yep.
Um, I like that you pointed out that he said it's not Rebekah. So let's so you kind of analyzed this initial part where the way the parents are standing. I'm going to skip over the CPR portion just since, you know, the little girl's body is there, and we'll pick back up where she starts asking questions. The officer starts asking the parents questions because I think there is a moment here. I'll probably play about 10 or 15 seconds and then we can kind of break it down.
Yep. I don't know stop you and keep going. I don't know where the closest places was. Okay. Here, let's just go. We're like smack dab right between here and that's it. All right. Babe.
Hey, can we stop right there? Can we stop there? Okay, this is another interesting fact. You see her going towards, right, to the back of the ambulance. Where is he? He stands back. It is, again, the reverse role. The fact that she's actually running up to the ambulance shows that she is involved and concerned. I do think, based on this, that they did feel a sense of urgency to get her help because they know what happened before that. And again, it's going to give it away. But I thought that was really interesting. Dad's in the background. She's up front. She turns around, looks at him like, are you coming? Are you coming? And he's still standing in the back. Why is he in the back? He should have been up front and forward. Why does someone take the back seat when it's an urgent situation? That's their child. It's because there is some sort of distance, again, showing distance. And remember, it's my child or it's my daughter, or I can't remember if it's I think their last name, but the word is, pardon me?
I think he said it's mine.
It's mine. That's even worse because he doesn't say the name. It's mine. I tell you, I do statement analysis all the time, and I'm telling you, this is a real situation, a really bad situation. The other thing is I want to mention, when the more people talk, the more they hang themselves. So the fact that there was this, they mentioned that she runs away. She ran away. There was 3 times or for 3 days. They also said that she's on 3 different meds. And the number one lying number is number 3. They will resort to the number 3. It's just something that happens. We find confirmed liars always use the number 3. Now, could it have been she was on 3 medications? Could it be that she's run away 3 times? Yes, we have to consider and we have to verify those facts. But generally speaking, number 3 should make your antlers stand up, and you should pay attention because the number 1 lying number with deceptive statements. So that's something to think about. They also provide lots of information about the bruises on her body. It is a way to deflect onto, this wasn't from us, it was already prior, that she runs away. I think that maybe she might have said that she even does this to herself or whatever. So there's no accountability that's taking place here. So the fact that they injected into the story, this is where it gets interesting. The fact they injected into the story is highly interesting. So as in a statement analysis, anything that's entered in that was not asked, but they give it willingly, you have to consider that was relevant information and probably was the reason why this child has had so many issues, that she's got psychiatric issues. She probably has run away. They probably put her out in the sun, or there's a form of abuse, corporal punishment, causes the dehydration. Remember, she says the dry lips. All of this is all playing. This is not good.
That's what I want to ask you too. In a situation like this, you would assume the first priority is the child, but it seems that the parents continue to tell a bunch of other stories that aren't even asked.
Sure. And that's that's part of what we call CBCA. So what I do, just so you know, I'm just going to show you just really quick. You see this big graph here? It's very extensive. There, I'm looking at over 127 indicators. And under 127 indicators, under what we call content behavioral analysis, what they say, when they say it, what they inject, how they diffuse, how they move away from it, away from taking ownership or adding, or if they add too much elaborated story, all of those are considered deceptive indicators when they're combined with other pieces. So that's one of them. You have to have three and at least two of the channels, which is six. We have 6 channels of communication through our body, face, voice, psychophysiology, etc. And when we look at that, when they're asked a question, I'm looking for, that's a probe, that's a stimulus. I'm looking for 3 of those indicators that happen like that. Okay. And when they do, I can cluster it and say, that's highly suspect of deception.
Okay, let's play this clip. And I mean, we're gonna see again. It's a lot of the same things, and we'll walk through that. So.
What's your name? A592.
Okay, so now she's gonna go back over to Dad. And the little girl is still in the ambulance, which I think the dad says some interesting stuff here, but it also his demeanor.
Okay, so again, there's no sense of urgency. His hands, this is a form of head or face covering, and it doesn't go away. It remains there. Why is that significant? Emotions don't last that long. In research, we know that emotions have a uprising and then a downward spiral, right? So they feel an emotion. Oh my God, I can't believe what happened. See how quickly that happened? He has it here the entire time. So this is staged. Okay, and it doesn't move. So this is what he's trying to project, is how concerned he is. I don't hear urgency in his voice. I don't see a sense of stress in his voice and his tonality. So that's inconsistent with what I was telling you about. See where his hands are on his head. At this point, you would imagine him being almost breathless. He would be more in a sense of panic, because that's panic. Oh my God, there's no movement. The fact that his body is more still rather than concerned, because when your child is in distress, as a parent, you're panicked beyond belief. You're not still looking back, looking down. You're not doing that. You're an active participant, and it happens naturally. So when we are in that fight, flight, or freeze, he should be right now in the panic, not in the freeze stage. It doesn't make sense. So see, when you start to tie the pieces together, then you start to realize something is definitely off. There definitely needs to be more investigation in this case.
And you pointed out that this seems staged. I want to go to a specific point here where they start to interview the parents. And from what I mean, in this part right here, I'm going to play this for you, and then let's go through it. It's right here.
Copy, Arizona, ID that.
I'm sorry, what?
How long has it been since you found her unresponsive?
We don't know. The neighbor brought her. For us,
When did the neighbor bring her?
It's 11:48. It had to have been probably close to 11.
Okay. I mean, what do you make of that? The officer is asking questions to the dad, but you see the girlfriend answering and the dad doesn't even know what time.
Right, because she's more actively involved. The girlfriend is much more concerned than dad is. I want to know why. What is the dynamic between the two of them that he is so disconnected and she is so connected? Because she shows much more concern than what he does. Were they there at the same time when this occurred? I don't know. There's more information that we need to get. When he's pacing like that, that's not unusual for someone to be worried and concerned and pacing. I've seen this even in other cases. But also it can appear as if it's staged because they want to appear as if they're concerned and worried. So they begin pacing. Also, he's turned his back. So Chris Watts did the same thing when the reality was there and he was being questioned, one way to deflect was to throw the back towards the officer. So why is he walking away? He should be actively involved with the police officer. It's not unusual to be concerned and to be pacing. But at this point, why is he pacing? The child already is in the ambulance. Where is he? Why is he not there? Why is she going there? So there is some sort of interesting dynamic that's going on that she seems to know a lot more than what he does, and I want to know why.
Is there any part of watching this that seems like they are trying to stick to a specific story or script?
It doesn't sound scripted to me, but the part that is obvious is the story behind the story. So both of them are consistently wanting to add and inject of her past behaviors. She's on medication. She's on psych meds. DCF has been called many times. We've been accused, and then that one was dropped. All of that stuff should never have been entered into the conversation. So that part of it would be a sign of guilty conscience. Like, I almost need to divulge. People that are guilty of something naturally will give away incriminating information because it's a way to soothe their anxiety. So in other words, if I give you some information that's true, then that eases my anxiety from lying. It's called cognitive load. That's common.
You do a lot of, I mean, this is what you do. In terms
Yes.
of just the body language of these parents when their child is basically lifeless,
Mm-hmm.
how do you describe this the reaction they're both having?
There is a disconnection of when the behavioral indicators do not match up of what we would consider as being emotions that a family member would experience and feel, and also to present in their body language and also the other channels of their communication of a person who is innocent. They conflict. So when I look at this, I go, okay, so here's an indicator, here's an indicator. How does this disconnect? How is this connected or disconnected with what we call A, B, and C? What I don't do is X plus Y equals Z. In other words, just because he does one indicator is really not important. But then when you start to tie things together, behavior, distance, the lack of emotion, lack of urgency, the tonality of his voice is not one of urgency. There's no stress. There's lots of performance that's going on, the turning the back on the officer, him not being an active participant in the event, giving all this extraneous information that was not even asked for, covering tracks up because when they take her to the hospital, they're going to find bruises and they're going to do all those things. And they're thinking, oh my God, here's another DCF case. So automatically they go into survival mode. How can I protect myself and lay it all on the thing so that I am not looked at as being a suspect? So when you look at that in totality, it's not body language, because body is just movement, gestures. We got facial expressions. We have his voice. We have the words he uses, the psychophysiology with the breathing. And in this case, I would expect him to be breathing hard. You know, this is panic. There's no panic. He's in freeze mode. So why is he in freeze mode? Why is he pacing? All of this stuff does not make sense. And when you bring it all together, does it sound like it's scripted? Like it actually was a script, like you say this, I'll say that? I think that they both panicked and now they're trying to cover their tracks. I find that they are not carefully scripted. They're very loosely and very amateurly scripted.
I want to play another video for you. So the young girl's two brothers were in the car when this was all happening. And one of the officers goes to speak to the brothers. Let me switch out this video. The two younger brothers are in the car. The officer goes over to the car to try and speak to one of the young boys. Let's listen to this.
The Arizona Adam Williams 7359.
Our position is a fine disorder. Okay. She's on, she's on medication for that. It's been a little bit decision.
Hi guys. You guys doing okay?
Yeah.
Yeah? So what happened today?
Today she ran away.
She ran away?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what happened?
And then she came back home.
Okay.
Okay, so he was coached. You know, when they ask you what happened, a child doesn't just give you blanket statements and like sound bites. So that they already coached him on the way. So how do you know that? You know, it's like, how, Susan, how do you know that? Well, it's very simple. That's not natural language.
Especially from a child, right?
I was going to say it wasn't age appropriate. Yep.
I mean, I mean, you hear his voice too, and we've talked a lot about, you know, the tone, these young boys would have seen their sister like that.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
this, I mean, we say coached, or you say coached, is this normal?
Is this normal for him? It might be normal for him if he's been in an abusive situation. You know, these kids, my understanding is that you said that they've been living like in a hut. So they are trained and programmed. This is corporal punishment, right? So these kids have learned what to say, how to say it, and most likely coached by the two individuals. When if we get pulled over, you tell them that she ran away from home. So that was when you think about what people say, what happened? Okay. She ran away from home. Okay. That's not what happened. That's not what created it. See how the mind automatically, subconsciously, what happens is that when somebody is telling you the truth, they always, they will go back and they'll tell you that that was probably the reason why the occurrence happened. But for that to be the first thing to come out doesn't fit. For example, what would have fit is that we couldn't find my sister. We looked everywhere and then she ran away. There was no lead up into the statement. And you're correct when you listen to the tonality. There was no sense of urgency in his voice. I did not hear fear. I did not hear that in his tone. I think his tonality was, as he flipped around, he looked directly at the officer, that he was already prepared to say what he needed to say. And he said it in two sound bites.
And the officer might have picked up on that, because I'm going to play this again where the officer tries to ask the kid a second time, kind of what happened.
she came back home. How did that? So, did mom and dad bring her home?
No, well, one of our neighbors from there, they saw them laying, they saw her laying down on the ground, and then they brought her back home.
Okay, well, really, that's really interesting because when you see all this pauses, and hesitations, he's thinking very quickly what he's supposed to say. Now, the girlfriend, if you notice, she kind of came around the other side of the car, right? So what she was doing is putting herself in the presence, like, I'm behind you. So that child then becomes kind of stutters and stammers as he's answering the questions. What would have created that cognitive load? Because now, do kids, stammer and stutter? Yes, they can if it's off their baseline, but now you can compare it to the first two responses. They were very clear and cut, no hesitations. Now we got pauses, we have hesitations and apprehension. See how it changes from the baseline? So what made the difference? And I guess the officer picked up on that and needed to take him away from the question. So when they're scripted like that, or they're being coached what to say, police officers know they have to ask an unexpected question, one that they wouldn't have been prepared to be coached with. And children, especially at that age, are not that good at trying to remember and to deliver it in a way that is appears authentic when it's not. So there was issues with that as well.
What do you make of Anicia Woods making sure that she comes over and can hear the conversation between this law enforcement officer and the little boy when still Rebekah is being treated on in this ambulance in the background?
You answered that question yourself. Okay, I mean, that is suspicious. Again, the fact that she came over there and she wanted to hear what was going on, because keep in mind, she can't figure out what she's going to tell the officers unless she knows what he said, that she can then construct her story around what he said to recreate some sort of pattern or evidence. That's not uncommon. A lot of deceitful people do. They want to know what you know so they can overhear it. We saw this very similar thing happen here in Florida in the Madeline Soto case. And when I was watching that video and the boyfriend walked in the background as the mother was being asked questions about the disappearance of their daughter, he was in the background, to mark his territory, to make his presence known, that he was there and he was listening to everything, right? And when I was on air, I said, you don't need to be looking at her. You need to be paying attention to him. He's your suspect. And sure enough, he confessed to the murder of Madeline Soto. How do you know this? Because they cannot handle not knowing what they don't know. How can they construct their story if they haven't heard what's going on? The fact that she shows up there at that precise moment, you have to wonder why. Why was she at that precise moment? And again, to your point, she leaves the child and comes back up to be with the other child because she is trying to control both environments.
And I want to go back to the other video one more time. A concerning part in this video again, like we just kind of talked about, Rebekah is still in this ambulance. The ambulance hasn't left yet. Yes, they're, answering questions with law enforcement and probably, as we've talked about, giving information that it really has nothing to do with, Rebekah's emergency in this moment. As the ambulance pulls away,
Concho AZ.
I was telling the other officer over there in the beige that she, just before we came up here, I didn't tell him about what he was bringing up, my dad brought up, she just ran away before we came up here. That
Okay, let's talk about that. She says right there, oh, I was telling that other officer over there.
Well, what I'm seeing is that what's happening here is that there was a pause before and then she just injected in additional content. What she was doing was she wanted to make absolutely clear her position and her point. So they literally will continue to add more detail until she feels that she's convinced that police officer of what she is trying to state. That's what's happening. That also we see often with people that are being deceptive. They start to regurgitate information that was never asked, and they do that because they're watching the police officer to see how they're responding. It's like, oh, okay, okay, okay. She didn't feel it yet. That's why she felt she had to add more information and more content because the officer didn't do it. So we always look at when they don't answer the question or they add additional information, we pay attention. Does that mean deception? No. We want to know why she injected it. What did she say that was so important she had to inject more information in? So that's what I see. And I think that at this point in time, I think the police have enough to be concerned to do an investigation in this couple.
What, I mean, if when this goes to trial, if it goes to trial, what would a jury make of this video? I mean, this is going to be used to show their initial reaction in the moments. I mean, her body she is completely unresponsive and hasn't been breathing for quite some time.
Right. And so, first of all, the state's going to bring attention to that. It's going to be pointing out to the jury the lack of concern regarding the daughter. I would be making sure that I had a jury panel that had children that age. I would also want to have jurors that had some sort of medical experience. I would probably want to have someone that may have been a social worker. I'd want to have all of those ducks in a row, and those are the jurors that I would be looking for. I just did a jury profile on another case for Court TV last night and again this morning, and this is what I do. I help them to profile what should you look for, what would a jury think if they did see that, what would their overall responses be? And my answer to that is it depends on who the juror is. So if a person was not a empathetic person, was much more analytical, they may not see that there was something so different, especially if a man was on a jury, he's not a very emotional male, he's not a kinesthetic male. Other jurors who are more kinesthetic or emotion feeling jurors are going to definitely there is definitely something wrong there. And when you're just really watching this, here's what happens. When you see something that is truly active and concern and a plead for help or concern about a loved one, the viewer will feel that emotion through their body language, their facial expressions, their tonality, and their words. It will move people to feel the emotion. Now, my question would be to your viewers, did you feel anything that these two were concerned emotionally? And I think that the jury would look at that, and I would point out if I was state attorney about his pacing back and forth, the fact that she leaves, that she gives extraneous information. She also gives information that was very damning, the fact that she was giving damning information, his hands on his head, turning the back, not touching the child, and then calls it's mine. I mean, to me, I would tie this thing up in a nice little easy bow for the state's attorney's office to convict these two.
Mm-hmm. I think too, a lot of parents watch this video and say, how do two parents, I mean, they were both their parent figures of this little girl. How do parents react to this video?
Well, it's not going to be just that. They're going to tie together. They're living in a hut outside of the house, and that it's in Arizona in the hot heat. The child's lips were all encrustated and dry. And then she even mentioned the word dehydrated. This child, I don't know what happened. It sounds like to me that she was dehydrated, left out in the sun too long with no water, not on her medication, and she probably would run away to get away from the two of them.
Back to just one more question about the brothers. Just their demeanor and when they're talking with the officer. Typically with children, would you see panic in them as well? I mean, would it be fair to say that this is not the first time these young kids had maybe seen or experienced something like this?
You know, children all respond to stimuli in a different way. It depends on how much control that the two of them had over the child. Parents, even in very bad situation, can have Stockholm syndrome, right? So they're really used to this kind of behavior. So they don't react the way other people would react. But I will tell you, once they get a DCF or CPT worker that's going to talk to those children, I think you're going to start to see this whole thing unravel, and those children are going to start to open up information that's going to raise red flags, that's going to open up more questioning with those young children. But to answer your question, when I'm looking at their behavior, the fact that it was scripted and very easily blurted out in 2 quick sound bites was very concerning. And I always look at, what is the first thing they say? What is the second thing they say? Because that gives a lot of reason what may have occurred, that may have happened, that she ran away, but it may not have been in the order in which everything happened. So I think that it's very questionable, and that it is highly likely that they were coached in that car before they were pulled over.
What do you make of that neither parent went in the ambulance and Rebekah went to the hospital by herself?
That there's not a connection. And also too, you know, when you're in there, the paramedics are going to ask you questions, right? And also, if that child is responsive and she's or he's in the back of the ambulance, what if that child became more lucid and started to talk? You wouldn't want to be there. You're distancing yourself. So all of that is distancing. They distance from things that they are distant from. So I have a really easy way or a simple way of saying when things are different, it's because things are different. And it's really that simple. When it's off the baseline and not normal, it's because it's not normal, it's off the baseline. If you keep going back to those simple principles, you will know how to read body language.
And I mean, is that what you see in these parents? Just complete disconnect?
A disconnect. Well, she's more connected than he is. She's more concerned than he is. He's more worried because he has a Chris Watts, oh my God, and I won't even use a word that I'm thinking of, as he said, oh, you know what moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean, when you look at kind of the way they're acting, is that showing that they're kind of processing in their mind of what is going to come of this?
they are constantly processing in their mind. His mind is probably racing of what he's going to say.
Unknown caller.
He's racing of what he's going to say and how he's going to say it. And that's why he's doing the face guard, the face blocking, the head blocking. All those are just pacifiers. So when we are anxious or nervous about something and start to pace, those are what we call pacifiers. It's no different than when you are anxious about something, you will kick your feet or you tap your fingers, right? It's a way to release stress. For him, that's how he's doing it. Although since he maintains it, it's what we call, there is, like as I shared with you, there is a range of emotions that are called synchronization and duration of emotion. And when I know what to look for in timing and how it's synchronized in the onset and offset of emotion, the fact that this is remaining beyond 0.3 seconds is concerning because that's not how real emotion goes up and comes back down. It just naturally goes up and it naturally goes down. His is static.
Is that a sign of someone who is guilty or trying to hide something?
That combined with others and the detachment and the language, keep in mind, I don't go X plus Y equals Z. It has to be in clusters. So when you look at everything in the totality, in all 6 channels of behavior, there are multiple indicators of behavioral indicators that are associated with deception in research, clustered together, gives me high probability that he's being deceptive.
Anything else I didn't ask you just in terms of, I mean, we went through a lot, and I think the biggest thing that stands out, it's a pattern here in the video where you see him like this the whole time and a lot of things that we went through, but anything else just kind of their overall demeanor?
The lack of urgency or even having any talk or discussion with the daughter. Not, hi, sweetie, honey, you're going to make it. You're going to be fine. Daddy's here. Daddy's here, honey. I love you. I'm going to be here for you. Daddy's here. Don't worry about it. We're going to take good care of you, honey. Are you, no contact to the it's. So I don't know how much more blatant it can be for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that point where he calls her, it's mine. He doesn't use her name one time.
No. And you'll find that oftentimes that they will detach themselves emotionally. They won't name their name. They won't name the relationship, my daughter, my son, my mother, my daughter. There is usually an identifier, but she doesn't. When she say it's mine, you may as well said it could have been a stuffed toy.
A great point. Susan, thank you so much for your time and just going through all of this with me. I mean, a lot of people here at our station have watched this, and you just go, how do 2 parents react that way to their child in such an emergent situation? But like you said, it's not a simple, oh, it's just this, it's a pattern.
It's a cluster of things. I wouldn't call it a pattern because pattern means there is a pattern, but it's a cluster. When asked a probe or a stimulus question, I'm looking at behavior that happens within 7 seconds or less. So I'm looking at these clusters of behaviors, indicators associated just with deception, not just indicators. There are certain indicators that are not associated with deception, but there are indicators that are 27 of them that are associated with deception. And we know that with research. So that's what I look for, and that's what I teach. So just to give you a heads up, I trained 130 judges in West Virginia and 4 of the Supreme Court justices on this method. This method that I'm telling you just got approved in the UK courts as evidence into the court system in behavioral analysis. Why is this different? It's because it's not based subjectively, like what you see with some body language experts. They go, oh, well, they're itching their nose, or they're crossing their arms, or they coughed, or their nose flushed. It doesn't work that way. And so I'm glad you called me, because I'm really happy to help, to help even law enforcement to be able to go through these videos and then teach them what they need to look for. Now, for them, they're savvy because they see this stuff all the time. They just don't know how to put the science with it. Like, yep, that's what it is. In fact, at 3 o'clock, I have to talk to an attorney because they want me to be an expert witness in a case on behavioral analysis. So I will have to go.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your
You're
time. I
welcome.
really appreciate it. It
You're
was
welcome.
great to meet you. And
Nice
thank you
meeting
for
you.
answering all my questions.
Sure. And if you wouldn't mind, just send me the clip, please.
Yeah, I will after it airs. It's going to air this evening.
Wonderful. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much,
Bye-bye.
Susan. Nice to meet you.
You're welcome.